We're back. Floor is not being level. This would be a continuation. We first talked about joist hangers, then we talked about columns, and so today, in this video, we're going to talk about the joists and how to maybe fix old floors that aren't level or problems with floors. So let's get right into it. So let's get into our little PowerPoint here. And so a couple things. Number one, we're going to call these holes or penetrations or notches, okay? You really can't do this. See how they drill the hole for this sanitary pipe here? And they did repair it with this piece of wood. So this is probably okay. They drill the hole and they probably put, this 3/4 inch OSB board on both sides and stiffened up the hole. We're going to probably say that's probably okay. All right. Now this isn't any good. This is going to cause your floor to be deflected. This is going to cause all kind of problems. It could cause doors to get tight, cracks in walls. I mean, they completely destroyed this joist here. Okay, and by running the HVAC supply duct through it. Well, we've seen this before. These are joists in the garage, and people try to figure out how to get the garage door opener in there. Well, you know what? This isn't going to work. You're going to have to figure something else out. Okay, maybe you could add this joist above and just stiffen up with some collar ties to take this one out. Obviously you'd have to look at the engineering charts or the design spans of your joist, or at least your contractor would know. But you can't do this, okay? This would be a garage joist. And that just, diminishes the structural integrity. Now this one's kind of nuts. This is actually a beam. We are going to do a video on beams, but you can see this penetration. There's no way that this is even allowed. Now here is one of these air venting systems that suck air out of your house, and they basically cut this joist. And so, if you've got things upstairs, they're going to deflect, especially if they're heavy, like an armoire or something like that. So, and I'm going to show you in a couple seconds or minutes or in the book what you're allowed to do and what's permissible for penetrations. Now here, the guy was a little ingenious and he cut it for the plumbing, right? And he didn't want the floor to deflect, but already deflected. So he put this steel I-beam or plate or angle underneath here. It's probably okay, but I'm thinking maybe that's really not long enough of a span right here. A couple of bolts. I mean, this could actually crack, the wood. This should have been probably longer, okay, and should have been a little more stiff. I mean, it looks very strong, but it's kind of a short piece. Here's another garage that has a hole. Here's a plumbing pipe, and usually you don't want to put the hole at the bottom and you don't want to put the hole at the top. The center is probably the best place to put a hole or a penetration, okay? Here you could see this is a double up joist. They cut right through it, and look, they cut through it in 3 places. What do you think is going to happen here? If you load this up upstairs, it's going to be a problem, and you may get some joists that are going to split. And I'm going to show you that in a couple minutes here, joists, how they split, and we're going to talk about other things that cause damage and deflections and making floors not level above to joist. Look at this. This one, it looks like the guy actually cut the hole out with a drill. He didn't have a saw, so he just drilled 100 holes until the thing fell out, and then ran his HVAC. Here's asbestos pipes, hydronic heating system that goes through here. Here's another one, and here they actually put a beam underneath it, and maybe they would have been better off by putting this beam over here on this side, because at this point this can crack and cause deflections. Now we're going to look at other things, moisture problems. Okay, so if you can stick a screwdriver through a joist or wood timbers, you got a problem, right? You got to go back outside, see what's going on. Maybe the dirt levels are too high, maybe the grading is poor, maybe you've got that stucco siding that's leaking, or hardy board that's leaking, or cultured stone that could be leaking. You got to find out what's causing the leaks. Here you can see it's leaking, like, oh boy, it's leaking. And in this case, it's not so bad, but you can see how this is going to actually rot out these joists. So you definitely have to make sure that there are no water issues. Now look at this. Here they decide to put joists in, and they're like, oh, they don't fit. Bummer. So what do? They cut the joist. So really, what do you think is holding up this whole entire floor? An inch of wood right here, like 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. What do you think is going to happen to this? And if this cracks, it's going to crack here, and you could have a complete failure. And so do not notch. Look at this guy. Here he says, oh man, what am I going to do? So he puts a little teeny piece of wood to hold up the whole floor. And who knows, he's trying to put nails into this masonry block. Man, you cannot invent the wheel, okay? You're going to have to, at this point, you'd have to get a structural engineer and put a structural steel I-beam in here, underneath here, and then properly fasten it to the masonry block. Here again is Mr. Screwdriver, and you can see how this piece of timber and band joist is completely rotted out. And that's a water problem or a bug problem. And usually, if you see this moisture here on the bottom, like, whoa, how did that get here? Because it's not over here. There is some here. So it doesn't get wet all the time, okay? That's a problem. Here's another guy that did the same thing, and he not only does he have a joist problem, but he also has water leaking. It's all rotting out from the siding. You can see it on the masonry block where it's bleeding through. All right, again, another guy. I mean, this is just crazy. You can't do this stuff. And here's the brick, and you can see how the brick's leaking. Guess what? When they built the brick, they didn't put in weep holes, okay? That's another problem. And I have videos on brick as well. So what happens is, if it overloads, okay, or you have long spans, and I'll show you in the book here in a minute or two, it starts to split. And sometimes it'll also split, like look at this guy, he just split right down the middle. And sure, these are knob and tube wire, 2-wire system home wiring, and sure they drill holes through, but they're not that big, okay? And they're not really affecting it that much. But here there was knots. A lot of times if you have knots, they'll split, or if they're under design, or if they're infested with bugs, okay? And we'll talk about, you got powder post beetles, termites, and carpenter ants. Generally, the beetles and carpenter ants are the ones that do a lot of damage. Look at this guy. Now, what the heck's this guy thinking? What do you think's going to happen destroy the entire structure? He's got a whole 2 inches of wood. So it's like maybe like 4 inches. But I mean, that's the whole floor in the mid span, and that's the worst place. That whole floor is deflected. And another way you could tell for moisture is when you see efflorescence and moisture, then you want to move that insulation. And I did. And look, it's rotting out. It's all rotting up there. So you want to control the moisture. Look at this hole here. Rotted out. And then before you know it, this piece rots out. And then all of a sudden your floor becomes unlevel. Here you got the notches, the water, okay, under design. And the next thing's going to happen here is this is going to crack right here, and the floors aren't going to get level. All right, so you want to check them out, okay? And they cut, they split, okay? And so, and then here, sometimes also what can cause wood to split is excessive drying. So if it's like it's very dry, it can suck the moisture out. If it gets hot, sometimes it gets pyritized if it's like near, let's say, a wood burning stove. So a lot of things can cause wood to crack and dry up. Look, this guy just split right down the middle, and knots will cause it to split as well, okay? Here, look at this split. Here, it's splitting, and once this one splits, you lose the load, and then the next one splits. See the split right here? And before you know it, it splits all the way down the line, okay? In the old buildings, they also notched wood. Now, this is like real hard wood. It's probably like oak or something, and so you could probably get a lot more strength on a notch. And this notches into an old beam, and those are generally pretty good. We talked about in the other videos of installing joist hangers. So there's a notch here, and yeah, it's probably okay, but maybe they got to put something underneath here, maybe a 2x4 or something, okay? But this has been here for 80 years, so it's going to be here for a long time. And here, this is actually under design. These are only 2x6s, okay? And now there's only 1 inch holding up the whole floor, and you wonder why the floors aren't level. And sometimes fires will cause issues like this in attic. Okay, and see, these are all joists or all painted, and you want to look at those too, because if it's this not really loaded. So the only thing that's going to happen here is you're going to get a little bit of sag. But if it was on a lower floor and you had a fire, you want to make sure that the timbers aren't damaged more than 10 or 20%. If they are, then you have to sister it and replace it. A lot of times they don't do that. Okay, these are actually okay. Sometimes floors aren't level and they deflect. And these things are way too long. There's no bracing or bridging. I'll show you that in a second. And so they started shimming them up. A lot of times people do this also because of floor squeaks. Okay, now another thing you want to do is make sure, see this little X in here? That's a brace, a bridge, and you want to put that in the long mid spans because that keeps these joists from rotating, okay, or becoming uneven and no longer level. This is just a nasty catastrophe here. There's bugs in here. It's wet, and this is like on the verge of collapse. This is a roof. And then you got mold problems where it's leaking. What do you think's going to happen? These spider webs are actually mold. That weakens the wood when it gets wet. So you got to always fix your water. Now you look at this. You're like, what's that? What is that? Those are termite shelter tubes, man. This wood is completely eaten out and damaged. So you want to make sure that you don't have humid problems, moisture problems. You want to make sure you got subterranean termites, okay, or formosium termites. And here you can see the termites are just all up in here. And so this is probably, you can see these tubes. So if you take a screwdriver to this, okay, you could probably poke a screwdriver right through it. See that? Bam, right through it. So what do you think is going to happen upstairs? Now this is a whole other problem. Obviously you can sister it or replace the joist, but then you're going to have to put some kind of baiting system in. See here, see the termites have gotten this, and these floors weren't level. So a lot of times floors aren't level or they make noises. They're indication of other problems. Sometimes you have ceiling tiles in the basement that you've got to remove, okay? And you can see the screwdrivers just blasting right through here. Look at this shelter too. That's a dead giveaway. There's another one, dead giveaway. And so that's just a whole other problem. Another thing happens is sometimes these older homes, they rest the joist onto like a shelf. This is a brick shelf. And if the mortar joints get loose or the foundation settles or there's hydrostatic loading, then this can settle too, and that's a structural problem. This is crazy. Here the joists actually are no longer even connected. This whole building is 3 stories and it's bowing out because it's no longer connected to the building. And what do you think is going to happen to the whole brick facade? This is one of those 4-unit buildings. This whole thing's going to, there's going to be like a garbage truck that's going to dump a dumpster, and the vibration is going to cause the whole siding to collapse. And sometimes you can't get to it, so you got to cut holes in the floor. Make repairs, and this is actually kind of cool the way they fix it with different colors. In old houses, you can get away with this. So let's go to this book here, all right? And we have a reader here, another camera. So we kind of talked about a few things here, okay? These are joists, they're wood, just so you know. Sometimes they're wood trusses, okay? Then people call these TGIs or iWood, and then plywood and steel and laminated. And so we talked about the spans too. If your spans are too long, and there's a book on it, I don't expect you to be an engineer, but you can look this up, and you're only allowed so much length on the size of the joist and the spacing, and you can look it up on charts, and depending on the kind of wood. Today's wood, SBF wood, is not as strong as the old days, so this whole thing deflects, right? So you may be a candidate of maybe putting in a support in the center. Now here's notching, okay? So you can see here where this one here is called an improper notch, okay? And see how that notches? That's going to cause, you see this right here, this crack? That's going to crack, okay? All right, and so you got to make sure that you want to properly notch. So let's look at these notches here. Maybe you could see. So basically, this shows you you're going to drill holes. You want to be, this is this unit here. You want to be 2 inches from the top and 2 inches from the bottom. So you want to be kind of right in the center, okay? All right, and then of course they show you here where the notch is on top, okay? And so you want to try to be in the center, and you don't want to be at the bottom, and you don't want to cut the bottom, because the bottom is the part that is under tension, right? It bows, right? So it's under tension, and it can easily crack. So you want to, if you're going to notch, make sure your contractors are educated and they know some of the codes. And here you could just see we talked about some of the joists, and we do have other videos in this series that you can look. I'll have all the videos. They'll be in the upper bar and the lower bar, so if you missed them, you could check them out. And then we talked about these. These are those braces. These got to be in there, man. They got to be at least in the mid spans, because then what happens is these. You could either use these or you could use these plates here. If you don't have these in here, then all of a sudden the joist will rotate, and you don't want it to rotate. Okay, you don't want it to, to rotate to the left or to the right. And so, let's kind of end this here, and we're going to do a couple more on this series. Floors Not Level. I'll provide links on the top, the bars. As you watch it, you can click on the ones you missed. I may label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is the number 3, okay, and I may put a label on it. And then I'll leave a few links below, and then at the end of the video, there'll be links to watch the other ones, all right? So I also, provide a service for people out of town. We do go to homes and we do inspections. I've been doing this for 33 years. I've done 18,000 homes. We have a service called Call Marko with a question, and there's a little fee with PayPal, and I'll talk to you about 15 minutes about house odors, whatever question you have. Usually people call me from all over the country on problems that they can't solve, that everyone's already trying to figure out. We're pretty good at this. We have a pretty good success rate. So you could. I'll leave a link. I'll leave a link below for that too. So keep watching. I like if you can subscribe, give us some likes, and shares. So thank you very much, and have a nice day.